again, you know, anime and manga, it has, in my opinion, it has this thing of like, it's very subjective what people consider manga and what people consider sort of like comic books, or I don't know.
I see.
It's very
I
weird.
see that discussion. So
Yeah.
I one of the biggest discussions around that is
Hmm.
Boondocks and
Hmm.
Last Airbender. I
Yeah.
forget which other ones they kind of
Yeah.
like tie into that, but they're like,
Yeah.
oh, like a manga has to be made in Japan,
Yeah.
and that's why it's a manga. Otherwise, it's
Hmm.
American, no matter what the style is. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, that's. I mean, I understand that there's gray area between like certain things. Like,
There
for
is. Yeah.
example, like Teen Titans Go,
Hmm.
they draw a lot of inspiration from
They do. They
anime
do.
and
Yeah.
manga. Do I consider that to be an anime? Not really, but it's
Yeah.
still a heavy influence in there.
That's
Whereas like
true.
Boondocks,
Hmm.
I might throw that. That's got to be an anime, man.
So so like, and again, I am not into the gatekeeping. I'm not into the, like, no, the purists of like, no, it's got to be made in Japan. My thing is like, I think um just what I said about studying, like, like studying the art form where people cannot tell whether it is, and then if they do find out that it's from a non, Japanese person, that is a case by case, that is a personal preference for that person to call it an anime or a manga.
Okay.
um but the thing that I always find, kind of fascinating is like the art style. Sometimes you will look at an art style and you'll be like, okay, that's a cool cartoon. And some people be like, yeah, I can't wait for, like, my anime, my manga to come out. And you're like, oh, is this supposed to be like a manga? And they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it, in my opinion, it didn't look like it. And they'd be like,
Okay.
well, manga is subjective, da da da. And I'm like, then SpongeBob is the greatest anime of all time. And they'd be like, SpongeBob ain't anime. And it's like, so we do know that there's rules to this. Like,
Yeah.
and again, I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not for gatekeeping. I'm just saying, like, there's an art style that when we see it, we know it.
Yeah.
Um, let's, yeah, it's just one of those things that I'm
I mean,
like,
it's got to be like for anime, like for example, when you were talking about the frames per second, like what Japan does versus what
mhm.
American does, maybe that could be considered, that. Or,
And yeah, mhm.
I don't know. There has to be some sort of criteria. I mean, I'm not the one to define it. Like, I
and
like
and
content fucking regardless. I don't give a
exact
shit
no,
what you
and
call it. The shit got to be fire.